The government has the report on the factors it says caused the fiery crash of a Flight for Life helicopter. Tonight, the wife of the pilot killed in that crash talks to us about the findings.
If I make it, I make it. If I don't, that's God's will.
The 85-year-old woman who survived 5 days in her car in the mountains shares her survival story.
Every investigator that I have talked with on this case referred to this defendant as extremely evil.
A husband's revelation after 22 years, his estranged wife hidden beneath the grave of a World War II veteran.
The debate in Washington that could put your web browsing history up for sale.
Your body shuts down. It's just getting ready to die.
The infection that took his limbs and the new hope that it won't happen to someone else.
"32 seconds. From takeoff to crash, 32 seconds. That's it. Barely enough time to react, plenty of time for multiple things to go wrong. The National Transportation Safety Board spent the better part of 3 hours analyzing and reanalyzing each and every one of those 32 seconds. Its conclusion:
contributing to the severity of the injuries was the helicopter's fuel system, which was not crash-resistant and facilitated a fuel-fed post-crash fire.
The net result was preventable.
Patrick's helicopter had safety equipment that predated 1977. It was a brand new helicopter. That's not right.
Karen Mahaney promised herself shortly after the death of her husband Patrick she would protect him should investigators try to place all of the blame on the veteran pilot.
Until we get safety measures on those helicopters, Patrick will not let me quit.
Her work appeared to pay off midway through the hearing when one board member asked to modify the final report.
This has to be more than just pilot error. There has to be something deeper.
The NTSB concluded Patrick Mahaney's decision to not flip an important switch back on right before takeoff led to the loss of control of the helicopter. But it also said the crash was utterly survivable.
And unfortunately, this pilot and the 2 flight nurses were caught in that trap on July the 3rd of 2015.
That trap, as outlined in our Fueling the Fire investigation, a 2 decades-long period of federal indifference that allowed helicopter manufacturers to continue to build thousands of helicopters with antiquated fuel systems.
Showed fuel on the pavement near the helicopter.
Also sitting in the front row, flight nurse Dave Repsher. The fire that started seconds after impact burned more than 90% of his skin. He's still in need of a kidney transplant to make up for his complete loss of kidney function.
And there's higher standards for automobiles than there are for multi-million-dollar brand new helicopters being produced today.
It's time to improve these systems.
Every new car manufactured, foreign or domestic, for our roads has to meet these high standards of safety.
Helicopter that just crashed, you got it? Okay, we're going to get some people heading that way.
If I make it, I make it. If I don't, that's God's will.
It was March 21st when Ruby was coming back from visiting her granddaughter and great-grandkids in Gypsum. Snow from the impending storm had begun to fall, and what Ruby thought was a left towards I-70 was in fact a right south.
There was a filling station just kind of down over the slope, and I kept saying, where's that filling station?
20 miles and 60 minutes later, Ruby found herself stuck on a muddy slope near the Lead Reservoir.
When I went to get up on that snow, it just decided to slide right back down into the mud, and that's where I stayed.
It's where she would stay for the next 5 days.
Whatever meant to be, will be. I just stayed calm, and there was nothing I could do.
The clothes her granddaughter had given her to donate became blankets and insulation.
Just winging it and trying to use my brain.
The Rice Krispie treat and sweet roll she found under her seat, her only food.
Thinking about my kids, thinking about my grandkids, my great-grandkids.
It would take for a pair of hikers to make an impromptu decision to hike Lead Reservoir for Ruby to be found, huddled up in the back seat, cat Nikki in her lap.
Oh, it was very emotional. Yeah, I don't know if I was laughing so much in the car as I was just believing that this is happening for a reason.
It turns out that from the beginning, our family was right.
For 22 years, they knew Tina Sandoval had been killed. The killer, her husband. But Tina's body had been missing all of this time.
What we now know, beyond a shadow of doubt, is that our Tina was murdered by her estranged husband And now, after more than 20 years, we have recovered her.
Are you John Sandoval?
I am.
Tina's estranged husband wanted a plea deal. In exchange, he'd tell investigators where he buried her in 1995.
Tried to get his bearings and ultimately pointed us to a very specific grave that was there in the cemetery.
Last week, Sandoval took investigators to Sunset Memorial Garden Cemetery in Greeley, where he worked the year Tina disappeared. They found her body underneath the grave of a World War II veteran.
Tina had been removed from where she had been buried. 7,826 days, 6 hours, and 22 minutes since the last time she was alive.
So why would John Sandoval give up this information now, 22 years after her murder?
The short answer is I don't know. Perhaps it was the looming possibility, frankly a probability in my estimation, that he would have been convicted again.
Tina's family says they had a lot to consider when thinking about the plea agreement.
Would our decision to accept a plea endanger another woman? Could we live with a longer sentence knowing that we would likely never recover Tina? In the end, we reached our decision as a family, and we are at peace with it.
Your internet search history is up for sale to advertisers, and it will stay that way because the House voted to protect ISPs, or internet service providers like Comcast and CenturyLink, this week. No House Democrats voted for the bill. Republican Mike Coffman of Aurora was one of 15 GOP members to break ranks with his party and oppose the bill. This debate's drawing attention to the campaign contributions that those internet service providers gave to members of Congress. And if you're expecting us to now say that those donations bought votes, there's no evidence. Our politics guy, Brandon Ritteman, explains.
We saw this post going around online from a blog called The Verge. It's obviously against the bill, listing all the members of Congress who voted for it and how much money they got from the telecom industry, saying that's how much it costs to buy their votes. Well, that got us wondering about our members of Congress. And before we get to the money, let's show you how they voted. All party line, except for Congressman Mike Coffman, the only Colorado Republican to vote no. He said it's a privacy issue, and he doesn't think we should permit private corporations to take advantage of our information for their use and profit. Now let's look at the money, and it's a buffet. Everybody gets some. This is the total each candidate got in the last 2 election years from the industry, according to OpenSecrets.org. And yes, Senator Cory Gardner, who voted yes, got the most, but close behind him are Senator Michael Bennet, Coffman, and Congresswoman Diana DeGette. All no votes. We can slice it another way. In Colorado, the average House member who voted yes got $43,000 from the industry. The average member voting no got more than 20 grand more, 69,000 and change. So what gives? Well, giving money to politicians doesn't always buy the vote you want. It's meant to buy access, the ability to plead your case to Congress. In the end, it's up to the members to vote on your behalf. You can decide whether you think they're doing that for good reasons or not as you decide how to vote on them each election. For Next, I'm Brandon Ritteman.
Despite appearances...
Yeah, when I first got home in a chair, I wasn't really a good driver. It was like bumper cars around here.
Time hasn't changed all that much for Marquette.
Yeah, I was in a coma for about a little over 3 weeks.
Yes, sepsis may have taken his extremities.
I'm too stubborn. I'm not going to go. They didn't want me.
But what it didn't take is Marcy,
Yeah.
who meant every bit of in sickness and in health when they married 45 years ago.
I just stayed with Mark and held his hand. I knew what was happening, and I just wanted him to live.
Sepsis happened 4 years ago.
Your body shuts down. It's just getting ready to die.
Doctors didn't know how Mark got it, but they knew they had to amputate when gangrene began eating away at his limbs.
It was blinding. It was so frightening.
The thing that saved me is that they gave me every antibiotic they had.
Every antibiotic, but not the solution doctors discovered last week. Vitamin C and hydrocortisone.
It's interesting. My father always used to think vitamin C was the cure for everything.
It happened almost by chance when Dr. Paul Merrick from Eastern Virginia Medical School used it on a sepsis patient with failing kidneys and lungs. He then used it on 4 subsequent patients, all of whom began recovering within days.
If vitamin C and hydrocortisone, we're going to give it a try.
It's too late for the solution to save Mark's limbs.
To this day, they have no idea what caused it.
But not the other 8 million lives sepsis will otherwise claim worldwide this year.
He's still my Mark.
In Centennial, Dan Grossman, 9 News.